Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's March 3rd, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented as always by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And Matt, another day closer to the start of spring practice. I know I'm fired up. I'm sure you are too. Parents are fired up. They're going to get to watch practices. And the thing that really got my blood percolating this morning was the story that we have on the website with Jake Lichtenstein. And, you know, what I really like is that this guy could be taking the attitude of, I'm going back home from USC and I'm going to ride it out and I'll be a rotation guy. I'll help out where I can. And, you know, it'll be what it'll be. Well, no, that's not what's going on at all. Jake Lichtenstein came to Miami to be a starter. And he plans to earn a starting job here in spring practice, whether it's an end, tackle. He doesn't seem to give five flying diddlies, and he's ready to go out there and start competing next week and prove to Coach Salavea and Coach Cristobal that he's the guy that they can count on this season. And I love it. You know, I hope that attitude is contagious. I hope it captivates people up and down the roster, and that they have a team full of fire-breathing dragons when they walk out on Green Tree on Monday.
Jeez, five flying diddlies. I hope your kids aren't watching the show, Gary. What would they think?
I didn't curse.
I don't know.
Five flying diddlies is not a curse word.
I don't know.
Would you have put your kids in timeout for saying, Dad, I don't care, five flying diddlies, what you have to say?
Yeah, I would put you in timeout. So anyway, listen, Jacob Lichtenstein, to me, when they took him, it was fine. It didn't excite me that much. But when you meet him as a person, you sort of understand this isn't just a football player, right? And I have to think Mario Cristobal knew that before he took him in the program. They do their research. They don't just look at who the kid is as a player. They look at his background, who he is as a person, the effect he has in the locker room. And Mario Cristobal's task, as much as anything else, whether people want to believe it or not, isn't just to get better players on the roster. I think it was one of the coaches the other day said, we're not magicians. You know, we can only coach as good of players as we have. So that's not the only task they have. The other task, and players will tell you over the last few years, this has not been a happy locker room at Miami. This is a bunch of, I don't want to say a bunch of, but there are selfish guys that have been on this team. And Jacob Lichtenstein is one of these guys who, if you want to hire a sheriff to get rid of the riffraff or whatever you want to call it, the bad guys, the guys who are cancers in the locker room, I think that's how he's said it to me in the past, and I think he said it in the story this morning also. But he's the sheriff, man. Like, he doesn't put up with that, and he's not here. Like you say, he's going to start. He wants to start. He's not here to start. He's here to help the team win. And if everyone had that attitude, it's very rare to find that in this day and age. It used to be a lot more of that, and especially for representing the home city and all that stuff. It used to be a lot about, listen, I'll do whatever it takes, man. I'll play whatever position. And kids would mean it. Now they just say it to have a soundbite. But this is one of these guys who, when you look in his eyes and he tells you that, he means it.
Yeah.
So I'm not as excited about Jacob Lichtenstein as the player as I am Jacob Lichtenstein the person. Whether you agree with me or not, that's just how I feel.
100% agree. I was very impressed with him the first time I had a conversation with him, as clearly you were. And I think he's a great pickup. And I'll tell you what, I'm almost ready to go out on the limb and predict that he'll be one of the starting four this year, whether it's an end or tackle. You know,
how can you say that right now? Like, that's just a throwaway. Why would you say that?
Because I'm not overwhelmed with the other options.
Well, I agree with that.
And I think that this kid with the right attitude is, you know, he's got experience at USC. And I think with the right attitude, which he clearly has, I think there's a very good chance that he will come in and earn a spot in the front four. If I'm wrong, I'll say, well, he didn't do as well as I thought. But and I haven't seen him play 1 second of football.
Listen, barely anybody has.
I'm judging the book by the cover right now. And the cover that I see,
he hasn't been good enough to start at USC, and he's a tweener here. Like
I understand, but I'm seeing a kid that has the right attitude, that has experience,
100%,
that has a sense of urgency, and I hope that a couple moms aren't watching right now, but I think he's going to be better than Jafari Harvey or Chance Williams. I just do right now, and I think it's going to make sense for him to be a starter on early downs on this defense this year. And I'm anxious to see if it plays out that way. That's my initial thought going into spring practice.
I think the issue that he's going to have is I think he's more tackle than end. He's an athletic tackle. I think he's a third down tackle. And I think that's all he is. I'm just on face value from what I've seen of him and from how they use him at USC. He's a little too big to really get after the quarterback at end. If you're playing one of these teams that runs the ball all the time, great. But that's not the ACC anymore. That's not the ACC Coastal anymore. They're not these big bruising offensive linemen who try to just shove you back like, picture the Georgia Techs of the triple option days. These are all spread you out teams. And if you don't get to that quarterback within a quick count, the ball's out. And a guy like this isn't built for that, but he is built for defensive tackles. The problem you got now is you got probably two defensive tackles that are better than him. Miami needs help at end, to me, not a tackle.
We're going to see if they have two defensive tackles better. We don't know that yet.
I think so. I'm sharing my opinion.
We don't know.
You said he's going to start.
The Leonard Taylor, and I think Leonard Taylor.
You said he's going to start, so why can't I say that?
Taylor's going to be a superstar. Okay, I'll preface what I'm about to say. I think Leonard Taylor is going to be a superstar, but his body of work to this point is minuscule. I mean, a couple plays last season. I mean, there is no body of work to speak of. Harrison Hunt, I mean, we thought he was going to make his major move last year. I mean, he had moments here or there, but he certainly wasn't a consistent force on the defensive line. He has the potential, I think, to become that. Hopefully, under a new coaching staff and a new defensive line coach, he will become that. But his body of work isn't so off the charts either. So I think it's wide open. And I think Lichtenstein is going to have a legit chance to compete with everybody on the defensive line. I can't wait to see it start happening. It begins on Monday with the start of spring practice. All right, Matt, moving on. As part of our spring preview, we're going through all the different positions. Today, we cover the defensive back position and take a look at the talent level that appears to be there. And it does appear to be pretty good. I mean, picking up Darryl Porter Jr. to play opposite Tyreek Stevenson is enormous. I mean, this is a kid that's played a lot of college football, had graded out very well at West Virginia. Now he's coming in to start opposite a guy that had a pretty good season last year in Tyreek. And you should be in decent shape at the cornerback position. So then you've got guys like, the DJ Ivies of the world, the Marcus Clarks of the world are now backups. The Isaiah Dunsons of the world, they're all fighting to be backups. Okay. And that's a big deal, in my opinion, that you don't have to count on those guys to be starters. And then when you take a look at the safety position, you got James Williams, Avante Williams. I mean, you've got some real pieces, Cam Kinchins. You've got guys there to build around that you believe are going to be pretty good players. And it could get to the point really quickly where somebody has a sit down with James Williams and says, James, you are not going to be a safety in the National Football League. You have to accept that for the benefit of your own development and for the benefit of this football team. And we need to make you an outside linebacker, and you will be a stud, and you will have a chance 2 years from now to be a very high draft pick in the NFL draft. Now is the time to do it. Well, if these safeties show up the way it's hoped that they will in spring practice, it's not inconceivable that that's a conversation that could take place here in the next month. And in my opinion, anybody that's looking out for James Williams will tell him, do not resist it. That this is the best idea. And I've had this discussion with NFL scouts, which leads me to believe that when Alonzo Highsmith, who's likely to get into the program, gets here, that he's going to tell that to James Williams, that we have evaluated you. We see that you are best suited to be a linebacker. You need to do this now so you can learn how to play the position. All things that I think could be happening here in the coming weeks in spring practice. So, but anyway, so Matt, just to get your opinion in here, the defensive back position, while far from a finished piece of work, I think that there's a lot to build on there.
Yeah, so if you just look at the numbers, they were number 102 in passing yards allowed last year. They really have everyone back, which when you rank that, you're not so excited about that. Yeah, Darryl Porter, which I think is a great pickup. But what I think a lot of people maybe aren't realizing, and why I really think the secondary can be a really, I think it'll be the strength of the defense, quite honestly. I think there's so much talent back there. And the reason being, the previous system really just left these guys out on an island. And if the blitz didn't get there, there was going to be a big play or there was going to be a completion. There was just no other way around it. That's just how they ran the defense. It was a gambling, blitz-happy scheme on defense. And I think with Kevin Steele sort of taking a closer look at things and just knowing how he does things, this is going to be it's not going to be, there was the Mark D'Onofrio bend it but don't break, and then there was the the previous coach who Gary can't hear his name. I don't know, people don't like to say he who can't be named, but Gary doesn't want to hear his name, so I'm not going to say it. But then it was the total.
We do it very well not hearing his name.
Then it was the total opposite.
Because if we bring up his name, we're just going to sit here and bash him every day, and I don't want to do that.
I understand. So that was the total opposite. So now I think we're going to be somewhere in the middle, where they take risks, where they feel they can take risks, where they study an opponent and say, here's the weak spot on their offensive line, or here's a running back that doesn't protect well, let's expose him. Where they find these little niches instead of just these all-out blitzes or these just constant blitzes from all different directions every play or every other play. It's going to be smart blitzing now, and it's going to really help protect the secondary that was exposed last year because the scheme was awful. And I thought it was really interesting. Something nobody mentioned from Josh Gaddis's interview on the radio the other day that we typed up, and Josh Gaddis wasn't asked about it as a follow-up. And I think it's the most interesting aspect of really him as an offensive coordinator. He said that they want to help the defense. His goal isn't just to score 1 million points as quickly as you can, like Rhett Lashley did. His goal is to work in, I can't, the words escaping me, cohesion with the defense, whatever it is, a synergy, I guess, a synergy with the defense, where if the defense is getting tired, he's going to slow down his offense. He's going to try to have long, sustained drives. He's going to try to help the defense. He made that very clear just in a couple of sentences. And that's what I was begging for the last year. When Rhett Lashley was hired, Gary, if you remember, I said to you, and we didn't have Good Morning CaneSport back then, but I said it to numerous people. I said, Manny Diaz the previous defense is going to fail, is going to look terrible because they're running this hurry-up spread offense, and the defense doesn't have the depth where they can keep rotating guys in and out 50% of the time for an entire game and have success. Their numbers are going to plummet. They're going to look terrible statistically, and it was true. And maybe if they did have a slower, I don't want to use the word plotting offense, but an offense that slowed things down to where the defense could play 10 less reps and you have the starters on the field more often, maybe, Miami might have won a few more games, And I know fans out there are happy. Like somebody posted on a message board the other day, thank God we lost to FSU, And I remember before that FSU game, it was an even split between fans. It felt like for fans that wanted to beat FSU and fans that wanted to lose to FSU. And I would never say ever lose a game. But at the same time, you understand why fans now look back and say, geez, if we hadn't lost that FSU game, I think there may not have been a coaching change. So it's hard to argue with that argument now. I never would have said, oh, yeah, it'd be better to lose a game. That's ridiculous. But with what's happened, it's remarkable, the turnaround and just sort of the way things are going now compared to where we saw them going previously.
All right. So, defensive back seems like it's in good shape. We just need to see validation of that, I think, in spring practice. And with a new defense being installed with new coaches, it's really starting from scratch. So validation is a good word. There might be some confusion out there early. These guys, they got to pick up the new system. They got to know their assignments. They got to execute them and look good out there. And then that would be validation that the defensive back position is in a good spot. All right, moving on here. We both got a story on the website today with Trevante Citizen, who makes it very clear that he's coming this summer prepared to make a contribution as a freshman. He wants a role as a freshman. Matt, I think he's going to get it. I think he's very quickly going to establish himself as one of the best running backs on the roster. Don Chaney's going to be very limited this spring and is going to have sat out a full year. Jalen Knighton is a very good running back, but I think he needs help. Clearly, he's not a workhorse type of kid. And Thad Franklin and Cody Brown, have not proven anything to this point, and I think their futures as Hurricanes are probably on the line here beginning this spring. So Trevante Citizen is going to play as a true freshman. There's no doubt in my mind about that, and I think it's a good thing, Matt, that he is going to come to Coral Gables this summer with that in mind.
Yeah, and Miami just keeps stacking talent. And like last night, 6:30 p.m., Jaylen Brown showed up on campus. I think he winds up in this coming class. Like they just keep getting these talented guys from in the area, from out of the area. Guys like Trevante, good shot with Jaylen and more guys like that. You just keep stacking talent, class after class after class, and before you know it, it's you're as good as anyone in the country on offense. I just got to match it on defense. And yeah, I think Trevante has a skill set that Miami doesn't have on the current roster. I think they're going to find a way to use it right away. And I know people want to say Jalen Knighton's a featured back and he should carry the ball 20, 25 times a game, whatever. I disagree with that. I don't think he needs to carry the ball more than 10 times a game because he's not, people say, oh, he's a great, some people actually think he's a great between the tackles runner, and he breaks tackles left and right. And what are you talking about? He doesn't break tackles. Well, he averaged 2.1 yards after contact last year, which is not good. And he's just better outside. He's better, running, not straight up the middle on these draws. And he's better as a receiver also, getting open in space and then making plays and making guys miss that way. That's just how I feel. And Trevante Citizen's a guy who has the speed and the power to wear down a defense as the game goes along. That's the kind of guy you want to have your 20, 25 carries because you hear the running back wearing down a defense. When's the last time you saw a Miami running back do that? It hasn't happened in a long time, and this is a guy who can do it. I don't think anyone else on the roster, maybe a healthy Don Chaney, but he has so many health problems. I'm not sure that he should be carrying the ball 20 times either with that shoulder. He's had 2 surgeries on now. So yeah, this is a guy that I think should, as the season goes on, get more and more and more work, especially if he keeps doing, stacking performance on top of performance, which he can.
All right, let's take a quick moment right now and hear from our friends at Life Wallet.
I will be your shield in the fiercest battle. I'll defend you.
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Cleveland Reed, and I play offensive line, and my job is to protect. I protect my family with Life Wallet. How about you?
Of course, I got Life Wallet. It's the best way to protect my family.
Long as we go together, we'll die, we'll never be a light. Couldn't let the darkness try you ever. Truth in my word, you I lie to never.
To protect you and your family, get Life Wallet now.
Life Wallet. Saving time, saving lives.
Like that ending. Anyway, also on the website today, Matt, we have a story that dives into some of the early recruiting that Charlie Strong is doing. And, this is a guy that has recruited as a head coach for, I haven't added up the years, but it's certainly at least 10. And now he's coming in as a linebackers coach. And man, he must be feeling like he's almost like on vacation because instead of having to recruit the whole lineup of people that are, obviously for an entire football program, he could focus primarily on one position. And I'm sure it'll expand a little bit beyond that. But Charlie Strong can really dig hard on the kids that he's recruiting. And he's always been known as a good recruiter. So it's only a good thing for the Miami Hurricanes. And as it pertains to the story on the website today about local defensive end Jeremiah Morselin, Matt, Charlie Strong wasted no time. He offered Jeremiah.
Yeah, and this story's not about the offer because it's a 2024 kid. They're going to offer a lot of these kids, and yeah, it's a local kid, so of course that's important. But what's most important here is you always want to hear the words that this young man said when it comes to recruiting, which is first time you ever talked to Charlie Strong, and he used the words, "We instantly clicked, we had that vibe, and it felt like we already knew each other." And that's how you want everybody on your staff as a recruiter to basically, when you talk to a recruit, that's what you want them to say about you, right? And when's the last time we heard any recruit say that in the last several years about any Miami staffer? I have, let alone all three of those phrases. I haven't heard one of those phrases in several years. So it's refreshing. And I think this is a whole staff full of Charlie Strong, so to speak, guys that bond with these kids and that just, the kids just feel a connection to these coaches. And that's, that's worth its weight in gold. And literally they did pay gold for all these coaches. So they're getting their money's worth.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a little sticker shock over there. Not by the administration, I don't think, because I think the president's office knew what they were getting into, and certainly the people that recruited Mario Cristobal knew what they were getting into. But I got to think that for the bookkeepers over at the Hex Center that are now having to balance the books and pay these new salaries and everything in this expanding organization, it's probably taken a little organizational work to figure everything out and stuff. And that's obviously the job of Dan Radakovich as the new athletic director. But Charlie Strong, like many of these coaches, brings a presence, and a presence goes a long way in recruiting, because you know who's most impressed by a presence, Matt? It's not even necessarily the 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. It's their parents. Like, you know, if you have a son that's a college football top prospect, you probably know who Charlie Strong is. You've probably heard of him. You know, you probably know the reputation. You know where he's been, what he's done, and that's an assist in recruiting. Just like, you know, I think when Alonzo Highsmith gets in this program, that he is going to be a massive, massive asset to recruiting, because a lot of these parents are going to know who he is too. And when they look at his background, 20 plus years in the National Football League, when Alonzo Highsmith says, my job is to get your son to the league, that's going to command respect. So you start looking at all these different layers of respect that are going to be in the loop in recruiting moving forward. And man, it's a win, 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 in my opinion, Matt.
Yeah, listen, objectively, and I always try to look at it from the mile high point of view, which fans don't seem to understand. They think I'm not a Hurricanes fan when I do this, but I'm just going to tell you the truth. And I've told you this also. We've talked about this privately, and I think you agreed with me, but if I had a child who had an offer to the University of Miami and an offer to Alabama, for instance, I'd say over the last 10 years, I would, you know, if I had to pick for my child, I would pick Alabama over the last 10 years. This year, I would pick Miami. I feel that comfortable about this coaching staff that really can develop you, can help you as a young man, develop into an adult, you know. There's nothing that Miami shouldn't have anymore moving forward that an Alabama will have. And it sounds crazy to say because Alabama's at the pinnacle, but there's also something to be said for being part of that process to really build a team into a champion. And you and I both haven't seen that here. We didn't think it would happen with the previous coaching staff, even with Mark Richt. We were thinking maybe Mark Richt would be able to have some sort of an impact, but it became apparent very quickly when you sort of saw the staff you put together and some of the stuff that was going on, that wasn't going to happen. Now you really get a very real sense that it's on that upward trajectory. And would I want to wait another year and just make sure that Miami's winning games this year and things are looking good and the team has that sort of a new, I don't want to say new morale, I guess a new culture, whatever those words would be. Like, yeah, I would want my son probably to not have to pick this year and wait another year, which is why it's important Miami win games this year, because that really will cement it and solidify it, right? Think about it. If it's your kid, objectively, what would you do? If Miami's winning games this year and looking really good and the kids are all really happy and doing well and progressing and getting better, have your kids stay home, man. Whether you're a top recruit with offers from every program in the country, there's no reason not to stay here if you can do that. And kids have been leaving in droves because that wasn't the case here. And now it is the case here, I think. But you got to cement it and start cementing it this year, even though it's not really Mario Cristobal's team yet, because he's got all these leftover pieces, some of whom probably shouldn't be in the program.
All right, and lastly, Matt, the Miami basketball team, huge win last night at Boston College. They've secured a top 4 seed in the ACC tournament, and that's big. I mean, you know, you don't want to have to go 3-4 games in the ACC tournament to try to win that thing. You know, you pick up, you immediately get a 2-round bye, and you'll be rested, you'll be prepared. And I think that could bode well for Miami's prospects in the ACC tournament against teams that they've done well against this season. Miami struggled with the middle of the ACC. The top side of the ACC, they've done pretty well against. I mean, you know, they beat Duke at Cameron. They blew out North Carolina. So they beat Wake Forest twice. So they've done pretty well with most of these teams at the top of the league. And I think it'll be to their benefit to be rested going into New York next week.
And I told you yesterday morning, I still feel the same way. You know, wake me up when the NCAA tournament's here. I know the ACC tournament's fun. I don't know why. We talked about this yesterday morning. I don't know why I can't get excited until the NCAA tournament's here. When in football, I'm excited for the ACC regular season.
The ACC tournament in Brooklyn is more than fun.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I get it, but
yeah.
you know, Miami versus Wake Forest, even after double bye, that just doesn't excite me. I don't know why. If Miami's playing Duke or North Carolina, that excites me. I want to see that. But that's about it. You know, seeing Miami have a close game with Virginia or Virginia Tech, that doesn't do it for me. You know, I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with me mentally, I guess. You know,
finally admitted it. You finally admitted it.
Edit that part out. That's not true. I lied. I will tell you though, like, you know, I like basketball, and I watched the Wisconsin game the other night against Purdue. My son was there. He was one of those. I don't want to say. Whatever. He stormed the court. I don't know if that's good or bad. He was one of those students that stormed the court. So it's nice to see everyone get super excited. If I'm watching them beat Virginia or Virginia Tech, I'm not storming the court. That's my point. Wake Forest, I'm not storming the court. Duke or North Carolina, yeah, great. But playing BC, the regular season finale against Syracuse, Syracuse isn't very good this year. Then you have, even after double bye, you're probably playing a Wake Forest or whatever. like, you know, just get to the, okay, I'll change what I said. Get to the championship game of the ACC title game. I'll be very excited about that if you get there. And then the NCAA tournament I'll be very excited about. Until then, like, I'm just taking a nap, man.
All right. Well, we're going to let you go take a nap. Oh. We're going to continue on with our workday. We're going to thank everybody for watching once again on Good Morning CaneSport. And we're going to tell everybody to go have a great day while you take a nap. And we'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Have a good one.